Dear students, good morning to all. I welcome everyone to the class. In sports biomechanics and kinesiology course, today we are going to see about joints and their movements. So we start with the classification of joints. Joints can be classified in different ways depending on the amount of mobility permitted by the joints and type of tissue connecting the bones. So the joints will be divided into two types. One is the amount of mobility permitted by the joints, another one is the nature of tissue. So what are the movements are possible to do? This is comes under the first category. And what are the connecting tissue are present in the joint? This is second category. So we can classify the joints in two types. Now we are going to see the different type of joints in the area of amount of mobility permitted by the joints. So there are three joints are there. One is immovable joint, another one is slightly movable joint, and the third one is freely movable joint. Now we start with the immovable joint. So immovable joint or synarthrosis. The another name is synarthrosis. The word sign tells us that the bones are fused and there are and therefore permit minimal or no movement. So the sin is called as bones are fused. So it is connected but there is no movement. It is fused and there is no movement. That's why this is called as synarthrosis. These joints are fibrous joint. What is the meaning of fibrous joints? The present of the muscle is fibrous. The joints are connected by the fibrous. So that's why there is no movement possible, which means that the binding tissue between the two bones is fibrous. So two bones are connected with the tissue. That tissue is called as fibrous. The fibrous will not allow any movement between the joint. The example of a fixed joint is the stitches between the skull bones. So we will see here. Here there is a joint. There is a joint. This is separate bone. This is separate bone. So this is separate. This is separate bone. But there is a stitches. There is a stitches but there is no movement because of the fibrous, because this bone and this bone connected by the fibrous, so there is no movement possible, but the joint is there because two bones are joined together, that is called as joint, but there is no movement possible because of the fibrous tissue. Here fibrous are connected to bones, there is no movement possible. So this type of joint is called as immovable joint or synarthrosis. And second type of joint is slightly movable joint or amphiarthrosis. Amphi means one. So this is called as amphiarthrosis or slightly movable joint. Here we can divide it into two types. One is cartilaginous joint. This joint permits slight mobility that is more than what is seen in the fixed joint. There is no big movement possible, but there is a slight movement possible compared with the immovable joint. The binding tissue is the type of joint is cartilaginous. So already we have seen the binding tissue is fibrous, there is no movement. Here binding tissue is cartilaginous, that's why there is a small movement will take place. Example of a slightly movable joint is those found between intervertebral disc. So intervertebral disc we can move, we can forward bend, we can flex our vertebra. How? With the cartilaginous tissue only we can do slight movements. So this is called as a cartilaginous joint because the connected tissue is called as cartilaginous. So this is the picture. This is the cartilaginous. So here there is no fibrous, here cartilaginous. These cartilaginous allows move forward and backward. This is the cartilaginous. Here also cartilaginous. That's why we can do very little amount of movements will take place here. So this is the vertebrae. This is the sternum. So the sternum connected with the cartilaginous. Then the ribs are connected. Here also. Here in between the vertebral disc there is a cartilaginous. It allows the move or rotate. Here also the interpubic disc there is a cartilaginous. So there is a small movement will take place. This is called as cartilaginous joint. And second type of slightly movable joint is ligamentous joint. The radio-ulnar joint. These are radius and ulnar bone. The radio-ulnar joint is a slightly movable joint in the forearm where the radius and the ulnar articulate. Radius bone and ulnar bone join together. That joint is called as radio-ulnar joint. This is the example for ligamentous joint. The proximal radio-ulnar joint is located near the elbow and is formed by the articulation of the radial head of the radius and the radial notch of the ulna. So the radial head of the radius and the radial notch of the ulna join together. That joint is called as radio-ulnar joint. The annular radial ligament holds the radial head. Here also ligament is helping for the small movement, the slight movement. So that is called as annular radial ligament. Holds the radial head in place, that is lined with the synovial membrane. So synovial membrane is helping to reduce friction during the movement. So during the movement, the friction will take place. The synovial membrane restrict the friction between the bones. So the joint allows for two movements. One is pronation and another one is supination. So we can do the two movements. One is pronation, another one is supination. So this is the ulnar ligament. Annular ligament, this is the annular ligament, this is the ulna, this is the radius. This bone joined together, this bone joined here, this is the annular ligament. This is the annular ligament. Help me. This is the example for ligamentous joint. Then third type of joint is called as a freely movable joint or synovial joint. These joints permits maximum movement between the bones involved. What are the bones involved? So there is a maximum movement are possible. They are also called diarthrosis. It means is diarthrosis also. Amphi means one, di means more than two. So diarthrosis, and are further classified into 6 types of depending on the kind of movements are possible. Under the freely movable joint or synovial joint or diarthrosis, there are 6 types of movements, 6 types of joints are there. So we will see in the next slides. So the freely movable joint is called as a synovial joint or diarthrosis. So these are all the 6 joints. This is called as pivot joint, the neck joint. This is called as hinge joint. This is elbow joint. This is saddle joint. The thumb finger joint is called as saddle joint. Here, plane joint. The tarsal bone or carpal bones. This is called as plane joint. Another one name is gliding joint. This is the condyloid joint. The wrist joint is called as condyloid joint. And this is the ball and socket joints. The shoulder joint and hip joint is called as ball and socket joint. These are all the 6 joints considered the freely movable joint. We will see one by one. The types of synovial joints. The first one is ball and socket joint. Here 2 bones involved. One of the bone has a larger rounded end which fits into a cup-like socket of the other bone. Here, two bones join together. A large rounded end, this is the large rounded end, fits to a cup-like socket. This is a cup-like socket, and this is another bone. This is called a large round. So these bones are joined together. Here, some movements are possible to do. This kind of joint is generally found in large bones. The ball and socket joint provides a greatest degree of movements among different kinds of joint, including here through this joint we can rotate, we can flex, we can extend, we can abduction, we can do the adduction. So all the movements are possible in the ball and socket joint because of the alignment of the bones. A large rounded end fits into a cup-like socket. So this is, so here all the movements are possible. The example is hip and shoulder joint are the examples. And hinge joint, this is a hinge joint, is said to be a very simple joint that allows movement only in one axis. Here we can do movement only in one axis. It allows two kinds of movements. One is flexion, another one is extension. The example is elbow and knee. Through the elbow joint, we can flex our arm and we can extend our arm because of the alignment of the joint. Here we can do only this, only one axis movement. There is no possibility for another axis. Here we can do. This is called as, if it comes to this position, this is flexion. It goes in a straight position, this comes under the extension. Because of the alignment, the articulation of the bones, so there is a possibility only in flexion and extension. The example is elbow and knee joint. This is called as hinge joint. And third one is condyloid or ellipsoid joint. Two oval shaped joints fit together, allowing for movements without rotation. So here there is no rotation because in shoulder joint there is a rotation possibility. Here there is no rotation because two oval shape. Here both the bones are oval shape joined together. The example, the jaw and finger joints are example. This joint is very similar to the ball and socket joint, but without rotation. There is no rotation because in ball and socket joint there is a cup shape, there is a big oval shape. So there is a rotation possibilities there. Here two oval shape joined together, so there is no opportunity for rotation. It allows movements in two axes. Here we can do a two axis because hinge joint only in one axis. Here two axes are there. Example, this is a wrist joint. Condyloid joint is wrist joint, so we can do in the two axes. This is the speciality between the hinge joint and the condyloid joint. And another one is saddle joint. It involves two bones. One of the bones has a convex surface while the other has the concave. So here convex and concave. Here one is convex, another one is concave. The bones alignment is one is convex, another one is concave. The convex surface of one bone articulate with the concave of other to allow limited rotational movement. Here also there is a limited rotation, but there is a rotation, but a limited rotation. We cannot do complete rotation because of the alignment, because the bones are convex and concave joined together. So there is a limited movements are there, but there is a movement for other movements. Here the rotation is limited, but we here also we can do with flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, everything we can do, but the movements rotation is very difficult. A very classic example of this kind of joint is the carpometacarpal joint of the thumb. In our human body, the thumb is the special joint, that is a saddle joint. So thumb finger only can do this type of movements. So that is called as saddle joint, convex and concave. And pivot joint, this type of joint allows rotation along one axis only. The common example of this type of joint is atlanto-occipital joint in the neck. The neck we can rotate only in one axis. We cannot rotate completely 360 degree. We cannot rotate. So this is the one axis only. This is the alignment of our bones. So two bones, but a rotation is possible, but there is not 360 rotation. It is only in the one axis. That is called as atlanto-occipital joint of the neck. And last one is gliding or planar joint. The gliding joint is also known as planar or plane joint, is the synovial joint that connects two bones that meet on flat or nearly flat surface. So up to that we have seen the cup shaped, oval shaped and convex, concave. Likewise we have seen in the previous joints. Here all the bones are flat, not in the convex or concave or cup shape. So here bones are in the flat shape. Gliding joints allows a bone slide past each other. So it is joined together in the flat surface. A flat move in the another surface. Likewise, it will move only move forward and backward, right and left, or up and down. Only they can move. There is no movement for another the rotation or flexion, extension. There is no movement possible. Only it move up and down, or right and left, or diagonally, because the bones are articulate in the flat surface. So up to that we have seen the joints and types of joints. Three types of joints are there. One is immovable joint, slightly movable joint, and freely movable joint. And slightly movable joint we have seen the two. One is a ligamentous joint, another one is cartilaginous joint, and freely movable joint we have seen the six types of joints. So up to this we can stop our class today, and we will proceed our class in the with new topic. And dear students, thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you very much. See, we will see in the next class. Thank you.